So I just finished reading Kevin McLaughlin's entry into the Mighty Guides ebook that we put out, and I just loved it. Dr. McLaughlin has obviously a tremendous amount of experience. He's been doing this for a while, knows what he's talking about. Loved his entry. He spent a lot of time talking in the ebook here about communicating risk and mitigation efforts to the board in the right way. I'm smiling because I'm remembering his line where he talked about saying, you would never say to your executives, an unpatched network can do bad damage to the entire organization, because only security people understand that. You have to really communicate that in ways that make sense. Now, we here at Nehemiah are in the same boat. I firmly believe that we need to be able to communicate mitigations to executives in terms of finances. However, what I firmly believe we need as an industry is a way to show people what their risk is and then help them make one of three decisions. Because everybody with any risk in cyber is going to make one of three decisions, and they're not mutually exclusive. They are going to accept some level of that risk. Right? They're going to say there's a cost that if it happens, we know we have to incur. And so we have to put our financial house in order for that to actually be feasible. We can then transfer that risk, right? There's a burgeoning cyber insurance market. I think the numbers I keep reading are somewhere on the order of, by 2020, we're going to write about $7.5 billion in premiums. To put that in scale, 2 years ago, that number was $2.5 billion. And so there's a lot of people looking to cyber insurance to help defray those costs. And that's a whole nother suite of podcasts. That's a long conversation. I've done a lot of work in that space. It's a fun world, but that is your second option as an organization. You can look to transfer that risk. And then the third option is you have the option to mitigate it. And I lay out those options this way because depending on the financial value you see for what a cyber attack can do, it might be more cost effective for you to say, you know what, I'm just going to absorb that cost. It's a low enough cost that I'll just deal with it. I'll give you an example. I talked to a CISO a number of years ago who, when I brought this up with him, he said, well, the biggest thing we worry about is ransomware attacks. I said, so of those three options, what are you working on? He says, well, we actually have some Bitcoin available. Our CFO's gone off and procured some, because if we get a ransomware attack, we're just going to pay it. We're not going to tell anybody because the costs are low. $25,000 to $50,000 was his number. He says, we looked at the cost of just paying it versus trying to get an insurance premium for it, which would have been way more than that, versus trying to change our entire security stack, both in terms of people, process, and technology in order to prevent that. And they said, it just makes more sense to pay it. So I love what Dr. McLaughlin talked about in terms of being able to tie mitigations to a business need. However, I think there's a bigger picture here that we need to understand, that boards need to know and CEOs need to know of the three options, which one is the one they should do. And only the organization can figure that out. And Kevin is right in that the only way to do that is if you're putting it in dollars and cents. And so, again, I love this article, hit the nail on the head, thought it was great. And thank you very much for that.